So, good evening, everyone. Here we are for another interview in preparation for our upcoming event in Nottingham, the Bitcoin Fest, which is taking place on the 6th of April from 9:30 in the morning. We have 500 tickets available. There were 100 VIP tickets, and I'm delighted to say they've now all sold out. So you've only got the free tickets still available, but they're still worth having because this is an opportunity to get together with other Bitcoiners. There'll be a football match available to watch and various other activities going on, and have a number of speakers. I've already interviewed a number of the speakers, but we're also going to have some workshops. And one of the workshops is going to be run by Darren, who is joining me today, also known as the Crypto Donkey on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right.
Now,
Yep.
Darren is a long-standing member of our local Nottingham meetup, and we are delighted to have him as a member because actually most of our meetings are structured around one of Darren's workshops. You know, he has a wealth of knowledge about Bitcoin, has been, hiding as one of these, anonymous plebs in the background, just grinding away, doing the daily thing just to help us learn about Bitcoin and adopt Bitcoin. And because he's been in the space for so long, and he's also a computer engineer, but I'll let him explain some of his background in a minute. But his knowledge is just really valuable, and the members of the Bitcoin meetup in Nottingham really appreciate everything that he's been able to teach us, and it makes our meetings much more engaging and entertaining. So if no one, I'm sure we've all said it to you anyway, Darren, but publicly I think we need to acknowledge what an asset you are to our local meetup. So, and thank you for all the work you put into all our preparations. So tell us, what have you got prepared for the Bitcoin Fest? What are you going to share with us?
So at the Bitcoin Fest, I'm going to be doing a session on wallets. So I'm going to cover, what is a wallet? So it's primarily aimed at sort of like newbies, beginners, those with a sort of like, not the biggest understanding of Bitcoin. And I'm going to go through the types of wallet, talk about the differences between custodial, non-custodial, talk about some of the pros and cons. I think I'll touch on Lightning a little bit because, you've got that interchangeability between Lightning and Bitcoin. What's the difference? Saying pros and cons, and I think I'm also going to cover some simple security tips. So, if beginners are going to go off and explore downloading a wallet and having a play, you need to be aware of things not to do. And so that's really the sort of focus of that sort of workshop. And I guess afterwards, if anybody sort of wants to come and collar me and have a bit of one-on-one sort of advice, I'm more than happy to
Be fighting them off.
Exactly.
Oh, what an amazing resource. So I think basically it's going to be limited to how many people we can fit in the room. I mean, obviously some people are going to be focused on watching the football and chatting to people. So I'm sure there will be space for people to come in and see what you're presenting. But I think this is great, having a little bit more of a technical input. Obviously that's not going to appeal to everybody, but for the people it does appeal to, this is a fantastic opportunity to pop in and pick your brains about things that you don't know, because I know we often ask you questions and you're able to give us some great answers. So so fantastic. So great that you're able to help us.
Indeed, and say, any more experienced Bitcoiners want to come and chat to me sort of after, they're more than welcome to do so. So I've done sessions at the Bitcoin meetup in Nottingham on sort of BIP85 and UTXO management and things like that. So for say outside of the wallet session, if anybody wants to collar me, they're more than welcome to do so. I'll be very happy to help.
Fantastic. And so I suppose we've kind of covered our next question, which is how you became involved with the Bitcoin Fest, because obviously, you're part of the Nottingham meetup.
Yes.
So really, obviously we've got Chris and Mitch who are organizing it, and it was just a natural, collaboration. In fact, I think it's really nice that there was like a small group of us who've been around for a while who just all kind of coalesced and went, yeah, let's do this thing. And we're all kind of adding in our own little bit of expertise. It's amazing watching it come together. But how did you first get involved in actually starting to put on workshops at the Bitcoin Nottingham meetup? Maybe we can hear it from your point of view.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably sort of. I'm trying to remember when I first sort of went to the Bitcoin Nottingham meetup, but I think it was after COVID. I think sort of COVID focused a lot of people's minds in a lot of different ways, and I noticed there was a meetup in the area. And although we'll come on to where I started off in Bitcoin in a while, but I thought I'll go to a meetup, and Roger was running it at the time, I think, and I sort of expressed sort of, hey, I do know a bit about Bitcoin, but what I haven't done is I haven't really met other Bitcoiners. I've been a bit of a sort of a lone wolf.
Yeah.
Um, and so it sort of went from there is that sort of I got a bit of a nudge to say, why don't you do a little tech talk? Why don't you do this? Why do you do that? And actually what I found was I absolutely love doing that. And I love that engagement with Bitcoiners at all levels.
Yeah.
And it sort of went from there, really.
Yeah, I know a little bit about Bitcoin. It's so funny now watching all the workshops you do, just imagining. I mean, I think I said in one of my last interviews that the British are notoriously self-effacing,
Mm,
which means that, we're not automatically inclined to kind of push ourselves out there
no.
or share what we know. Sometimes we need an excuse. And
Yeah.
actually, once you kind of whispered in someone's ear that you could help out, it's like, yes,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
wealth of the
Exactly.
wealth of generosity and need for that information
Yeah,
just crawled out of the woodwork. So
exactly.
yeah, fantastic. It's been awesome to watch. Um, yeah, so moving on from that, why don't you tell us how you got into Bitcoin in the first place? Because I think you have some interesting stories to tell us.
Do we have all night? So, my background is a software engineer, sort of
Mm.
architect, and so having that engineering background, and particularly a software one, there's a tinker element that comes along with that. So you like to sort of pull things apart and put them back together. So I think sort of back in, oh, I'm trying to think, maybe about 2012, 2013. I used to peruse a social media sort of website called Slashdot.
Hmm.
Basically, it's a website for sort of news for sort of geeks and nerds, shall we say. On that, there'd be things like sort of Linux and whatever, and Bitcoin came along, and I'm like, what is this Bitcoin thing? So I sort of I got the source code for Bitcoin, I downloaded it, changed it, made my own sort of Darren coin type thing to see what was going on. What is this distributed ledger thing? What does it mean? And so it sort of went from there, really. Um, I
And what
think
sort of time frame was this?
I think it was about 2012, 2013.
Okay, so
So
really quite early. Yeah.
pretty early. And I say, with this interview coming up, I did a bit of a sort of dig through the archives to see sort of when was I really doing stuff with Bitcoin? And yeah, as I say, I know because I found an order for a Bitcoin miner back in May 2013, so I can pretty much guarantee it was 2012, if not maybe earlier. But
Wow.
um, I remember sort of at the time it was pretty hard to buy Bitcoin. Right, it wasn't mainstream at all in any way, shape, or form. And there was a game at the time called Second Life,
Hmm.
and so what you would do is you would go to an exchange. Can't remember, it was something like Vox or something like that. You would buy Linden dollars, which were an in-game currency for Second Life, and so what you could buy those with fiat, and then or your pounds, and then you could convert that into Bitcoin and sort of send it off sort of wherever. And this was probably in the days before Mount Gox, which was obviously exchange, which famously sort of went bang, and loads of people lost loads of bitcoins, which they still haven't got back to this day. So it was. Yeah, it was in those sort of reasonably early days, and the because it was hard to buy Bitcoin, as I say, I found that I bought a miner from Butterfly Labs in 2013, May 2013, and so that miner was around $3,000. So
Wow.
that's a big investment sort of back then.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I never got that miner because the company sort of went bust or got shut down. So I never got to mine any Bitcoin with it.
Oh no.
Back in the day, it was one of these first sort of ASIC miners, and so it was 50 gigahash. Now, to put that into sort of perspective, if you
Yeah.
had a 50 gigahash miner today,
Yeah.
that would mine you about $2 a year. Okay, so so
Wow.
so the mining power today, you can see that exponential growth on
Yeah.
the faster and faster and faster machines. So $2 a day. Now, the interesting thing is the cost of that machine in May 2013 was
Yeah.
around 29 Bitcoin. So
Oh,
my $3,000 was 29 Bitcoin. If I'd hung on to that 29 Bitcoin, that would have been worth over 2 million US dollars today, which is just, yeah, it's crazy to sort of understand how, things have really progressed from those sort of early days.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
really crazy to see. And certainly back then, I don't think anybody knew sort of where things were going to go. Um,
Yeah. Well, it really focuses your mind on the choices you make with your investments as well. Because I
Absolutely.
think certainly for the last 15 years, I mean, I think even people who've run Bitcoin businesses have said this, they'd have made way more money if they'd just taken that money and bought Bitcoin with it,
Yeah,
forget doing anything else.
yeah.
And in many respects, you do something else because you feel like you want to make a contribution. And
Mm,
isn't it amazing how it almost reverses the motivations in life? Because, obviously most people have a fiat job because they have no other choice. But
yeah.
of course, in Bitcoin, you can invest in Bitcoin. And then, of course, you've suddenly find you've got more money than you've ever had before in your life. And then it's like, well, what do I do to make my life more fulfilling? Because of course, it's
Mm,
not just about money; it's about relationships and contribution and feeling valued. And ultimately, I think we're just in that stage in Bitcoin's history where the people who've been around for such a long time are now in a position to do that. And
yeah.
isn't that a great place to be? I mean, we're the thing that a lot of people don't really explain about Bitcoin is that it refocuses your life choices and actually makes life much more rewarding in the process.
I think so. I think so. And it's worth sort of pointing out, I'm not Bitcoin rich, right? Is
No,
that
yeah.
in the whole sort of story of things, Bitcoin really takes you down a rabbit hole.
Hmm.
And so that rabbit hole for me was like sort of let me too. I don't know whether most people have seen this, but was to then you look at Bitcoin, you look at digital currencies, and you think, well, what is currency? What is this fiat thing? And I certainly my journey went down through Mike Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money,
Oh,
um,
yes.
which at the time blew my mind because I hadn't realised about fractional reserve banking, and I didn't understand about things like Gresham's law and
Yeah.
all of these things that
No
I've
one does.
learned sort of on that sort of the Bitcoin journey, which is really a journey about sort of just understanding more about money and how that fits in with society. Really interesting journey for sure, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. These are things that aren't taught in schools. I mean, I've heard of a number of financial commentators like Martin Lewis saying, why don't they teach finance in schools? And of course, he's talking about how to manage credit cards and mortgages. But it's like, no, we need to be taught about the fact that there's a whole different way of looking at economics. I mean, I've
Mm,
I've got a daughter who's studying economics for GCSE and she wants to study it at A level. And I was like, they're only going to teach you one way of looking at the world.
yeah,
and
yeah,
and that's even if you're looking at it and paying attention in the first place.
no,
um
exactly.
and actually, yeah, I agree. I saw Mike Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money, and it was a revelation. They were done really well. It was a real and I'm sure they're still available. Actually, I'm sure they've got millions of views now, but it was really good to kind of dive down into how money actually works. And
Mm.
I can't imagine any of our audience hasn't seen them, but if you haven't, they're well worth a watch to kind of get some grounding as to, how money works and understanding what that is, because that's often the problem with Bitcoin. You have all these people who talk about it rising in the price, and they kind of talk, well, it's going to take a dump because it always does, but that's without understanding the bigger picture, because most of the time, without an understanding of how money works and the history of money, you haven't got a context to really understand what this thing is.
Mm.
You need a combination of financial knowledge. You need to understand computer software. You need to understand, history, how money works in society. And I often say to people, before I wrote my book, that, I'd go to conferences and I'd meet technical people who knew how software works, but they didn't understand how the financial system
Mm.
works. And then you'd meet people who understood how the financial system works, but they didn't really understand how computer software works. And it was almost like there was a missing piece in the middle where, someone kind of needed to bring those philosophies together, which is where I kind of stepped in and tried to help fill that niche. Because obviously, there are hundreds of Bitcoin books now, but at the time, this has been an evolving and growing sector, and as people have tried to understand it, they've then shared what they know. And of course, people tend to focus on the bit that most interests them,
Mm.
but then there'll be whole subjects that they're not as familiar with. So
Yeah,
yeah.
let's say that there's a rabbit hole, and the breadth of it as well is like, as you say, it covers everything from, understanding about sort of computers all the way to, society and how money works. And it's it's a, I don't know, it feels like it's one of those things that you never know everything, and there's always a sort of a daily advancement to be made somewhere. And
Mm,
and I think this is one of the things I quite enjoy about um, doing some of the tech talks at the Bitcoin meetups, is the fact that not only can you sort of help sort of the people new to the space sort of get a bit of a grasp and a shortcut, but actually I get a buzz sometimes from those older sort of Bitcoiners, learning
yeah.
something new as well. And I think that's one of the things, is not everybody knows everything. There's always something new to learn, and that's part of the joy of it, really.
Yeah. What was it like for you as a computer engineer starting to learn about how the financial system worked? Can you remember the impact that had on you?
Well, interestingly, at the time, uh, I was working in TradFi, sort of doing some payment APIs. So,
Ah,
although I was working for a global bank, doing payment APIs, that was more from the software point of view, and I didn't really understand the fractional reserve banking and everything behind that. So I think sort of to sort of scratch below the surface and see what was going on and how was,
mm,
it was, I mean, it was sort of really eye opening. And I say, going back to sort of, understanding about, I think at the time you didn't think about things like how money inflated.
mm,
In hindsight, you can go back and you can see, hang on a minute, something happened in 1971. What was that then? So I think it just opened up all of these doors, and sort of once you'd peeked inside, and it was it's like going down a rabbit hole, which has
yeah.
been really, really helpful, really useful, and really, really eye-opening to how things work, and why they work in that way. It's interesting.
Yeah. And once you discovered all this, did you try sharing that information with anyone, and what kind of reaction did you get?
Yeah, definitely sort of tried to share it with people, and I think that's a mixed bag, right? So
Yeah.
once I sort of realized, I'm like, hey, you need to look at this. You need to look at this. You find some people were inquisitive, and and sort of would have a look. Some people thought, hey, you're crazy. This is like magic internet money type stuff. You're a fool. You're going to lose everything here. It's a con. It's a scam. So a mixed bag, really. I think I think there's a saying about sort of, people end up coming and buying Bitcoin at the price that they
Yeah.
that they sort of deserve. Is that yeah, some people are ready and inquisitive and wanting to understand and are able to listen, and some people sort of are very sort of stuck in their ways, and say it's a mixed bag, really. I think is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And how did your family react? Have they been supportive, or did it take a while to win them over?
I don't think I've won over anybody in my family over. Um,
They must
yeah,
love you very much just to let you get on with it.
I think so. I've sort of yeah, I've tried to gift Bitcoin to them, and not really interested. So, some friends, that's a different matter. I think so, some of them have bought. Some of them have come back to me afterwards to say, Darren, the price has gone up, right? Why didn't I listen to you? Why didn't I buy? Now, you know, equally, I think yeah, it's a very difficult thing. I think particularly if people are struggling with their sort of that they're earning a wage to pay the bills, to pay the mortgage, with the cost of living crisis, which is our inflation that's going on. It's very difficult to get off that sort of that sort of spinning sort of wheel, isn't it? It's a
Mm.
and I always say to people, hey, look, you just need to buy some sats. Just it's very difficult. Nobody can go out and buy like a whole Bitcoin, for like $70,000 or whatever it is now. But there's nothing to say you can't just buy a little and often. And I'm a
Mm.
big advocate of, like, you need to at least hold something rather than nothing, and then just build on it from those little sort of sats. They grow over time. Yeah,
Yeah,
just go for
it's
it.
often that first step that's the hardest. I think someone wrote a song about that,
Yes.
because and I think I was the same when I first got into it. It was just like, well, I'll just try with 10 quid,
Yeah.
and I was very lucky because I mean, I was doing that in around 2016, and so the 10 quid quickly became 11 quid and 12 quid, and because it was the price was starting to go up, and at the time I think they had a website called Purse.io where you could actually put your wish list from Amazon on there, and then buy stuff from Amazon that way. And I think I got a little heater for the flat I was living in at the time, and ultimately I got it for free because the Bitcoin price had gone up so much in the space of like a month. And I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And after that, I was trying to tell everybody. But you're right, some people just think you're crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I was in a dental practice at the time, and I tried giving some to my nurses, and I think a year later, when the price had gone from 500 quid to 20,000, I was still working with one of them. I said, "Have you still got that Bitcoin I gave you?" She said, "Oh no, I've lost the password." I was like,
Yeah.
"You
Well,
can't help some people."
but we've all done that, as I say. I've lost keys, so
Yeah,
I've lost Bitcoin out there.
yeah,
I've lost it in exchanges. I've sold Bitcoin. I mean, I think some exchanges where I had sort of 6 or 7 Bitcoin. The guy who ran the exchange walked away with that, so I saw nothing. What you gonna do?
yeah,
There are times when I sold my Bitcoin stack. Particularly in those bear markets. I think the
yeah.
second bear market I went through, I panicked. I was still up, so I sold everything, everything, sold it, bought myself a new driveway, right? And
Oh,
again, if in hindsight you think I should have just held. Now,
yeah.
today I have a different sort of attitude with that. Is that if let's say I go to the Bitcoin meetup and I buy a beer at the bar with Lightning, what I'll do is I'll always try and sort of then top up that Bitcoin, those
Hmm.
sats at the end of the month, so that there's a bit of a circular economy thing starting to sort of happen there. And I think there are just different ways of looking at it than I probably did in the past. And I think that's one of the key things that I like, is sort of like helping other people and telling my sort of story, and sort of like imparting that sort of advice so that other people don't make the same sort of mistakes that I've done along the years.
Yeah. On that note, what would you say is your biggest Bitcoin regret
Biggest Bitcoin regret
in
is
terms of purchase or
it's well, so yeah, no, I think it was the driveway. was that I'd accumulated a stack. I sold sold the Bitcoin. I bought a new driveway for my house, and I wouldn't like to say how much that would have been worth now if I'd held on to it. And I didn't need the money for it at the time. So you know,
Oh,
I think yeah. I mean, in hindsight, if only I'd hodled. But you know, I'm sure I'm not alone in the fact that you know. Nobody knew really where the price was going to go, and
yeah,
so you know you spent your Bitcoin, right? So you bought it and
yeah,
you spent it, and you know over time that price has just gone up and up and up.
yeah,
And so you know you can't really regret these things because you know it is what it is.
yeah.
But that's you know looking back in hindsight, if only I just held. But
But
you
I
know,
think we all have those stories, and I think
yes,
that's going to be testament, because if just one person held all the Bitcoin, it would be completely pointless. It's
absolutely,
designed as a form of money that's meant to circulate.
absolutely,
Um, and Yeah, I mean, I've got a similar story. I think in 2019, I'd promised my daughter that I'd take her to Disney World between going from junior school to secondary school. And so I had to sell a bunch of Bitcoin at the wrong time in order to afford probably the most expensive holiday we've ever had. But the thing is, she's only going to be at that stage in her life once.
that's it.
So, it's about what you value.
Yes,
And the thing is, you can talk to yourself over and over again about the fact that, oh, if only I'd held
yeah,
on to that Bitcoin, but actually you have to give yourself credit for the things that it enabled you to do on the way, because
absolutely,
we're not all going to be here forever. The only thing we really take with us is our life experiences. And if you just sit on that Bitcoin and don't do anything with it and
yep,
just watch the number go up,
yep,
um, and then there's a flaw in the code and it all breaks down, it's just like, what did I do on that journey?
yeah.
This is the, it's meant to be there to enhance your life, not to become
A
your
a
life.
absolutely, yeah, and what I would say is that, the the Bitcoin sort of journey for me, I think one of the real joys is meeting and engaging with other Bitcoiners because,
Yeah.
there tends to be a bit of a common thread between them, and I know, listening to some of the other sort of, live interviews that you did, I think without exception, they all mentioned sort of, libertarianism and
Hmm.
about sort of those sort of moral ideas about sort of freedom and self-expression and stuff like that. And I think that's a key driver for me. And also what I find is that the Bitcoiners I meet and talk to, they tend to be very like-minded like that.
Mm.
And I think that for me is a real joy and a pleasure talking with other Bitcoiners because when they get it, they get it, and it's a I think it's that meeting of sort of like-minded people and the friendships that form from that. That's rather than the
Shared values. Yeah.
shared values. I think that's
Yeah.
that's the key thing, rather than money go up, make money. Whatever. That's a by the by thing
It's a
for me.
nice side benefit.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think it's about those relationships
Yeah.
that form really.
Yeah. Oh, fantastic. So, given all of that, what would you say that you're most looking forward to about our upcoming event, the Bitcoin Fest?
I think I've probably covered it, but really, it's about meeting new Bitcoiners. It's about
Mm.
sort of renewing those sort of friendships with like sort of other Bitcoiners that I've met along the way, meeting people, helping people there, and I think that really is the sort of that's the kick I get out of it is that it's those things really.
Oh, well, that's fantastic, Darren. Thank you so much for your time this evening,
Very welcome.
giving us a taste of, what you're going to be contributing to the Bitcoin Fest, and I know your contribution will be stellar because I've experienced it for myself, so I can testify that if you
Thank
want
you.
to go to Darren's workshop, you will very much enjoy that. So I'm going to wrap up the interview here because it's been about half an hour, which is a
Okay.
perfect length just to
Perfect.
keep everybody's attention. So thank you ever so much for your time. Anyone who's watching on here, I've now set up the thumbnail for our event on the 6th of April, so you can start to cue your interest for actually watching our live stream on the day. And also, anyone who hasn't yet subscribed, if you subscribe and make a comment down on the video below, just in order to help our algorithm. So just so that we get as many viewers as we can as we build up to this event. So thank you ever so much, everyone. Thank you for watching. And each time we do this, I see that we have more live viewers attending in the corner. So thank you very much for your attention. And we'll see you again for an interview tomorrow with Coach Carbon. All right, take care. Bye.